we're talking about the most recent gubernatorial elections, we'll do what Donald Trump and his followers want us to do. Think about 2020. Joining us tonight to discuss these and various topics, please join me in welcoming our guest, Ken Water.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, Ken. It's an absolute pleasure having you on. Reason why I wanted to have you on for this particular episode is because I know you and I have talked. We've known each other for a long time. In the past few years, you've undergone somewhat of a political conversion. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, I was a lifelong Republican. I voted for every Republican president since Reagan, every single one, except for Trump. And it was interesting because the Hillary Clinton was the last person I would ever consider voting for in my life. Couldn't stand her. Couldn't tolerate the thought of her being in public life, never mind being president. But because the opponent was him, she slided down to the second worst person I could ever vote for. And so I stood in the polls, and it took me like 20 minutes just to stare at the ballot. And then I finally pulled the lever and went home and cried in the shower. I said, I figured my choices are basically, do I tread water in the cesspool for 4 years, or do I play Russian roulette with half the chambers loaded? And I figured it was too big a risk. So 4 years later, I said, you know what, I was right.
You feel okay about that decision?
Oh, yeah, it was the right decision. And I stayed Republican because I said, this is temporary. He's here, he's gonna be gone, and we'll get back to things because, mostly for economic policies, military policies, I'm much more right wing than left wing, but for social policies, I'm much more left wing than right wing. But but it became evident that it was not going to get better quickly, or even in the short run. And when they got rid of Liz Cheney for basically telling the truth, I said, I'm out.
I think the big thing that was brought up is that once Trump was elected, like the consensus was that, okay, he'll be president, but at least he'll be pliable. He'll be easy to mold. Like it'll be easy to go ahead and go along with certain policy decisions. But it ended up backfiring on the rest of the country and going to the Breitbart universe and the Newsmax folks.
Well, I thought he would do what Reagan did or what George Bush did, and basically surround himself with competent people and just say, and just let them really do the detail work and be the figurehead. That's not what happened. So, it really did backfire. But I think a lot of people were, they liked the show, they liked the stated policies, but and they figured, competent people would handle the details. But the competent people just kind of kept dropping out of the picture.
I think there were certain people he employed at the beginning. He hired for the cabinet, for his staff, who may have had their been focused on policy, and they try to ignore the rants and his insanity, and they couldn't do it. And if they pushed back on him, saying this is not the way it's done, he fired them.
Yeah.
So anybody you might have thought had a place in that role, a role that 5 years ago was gone pretty quickly.
Yeah, he was the schoolyard bully. Basically, I couldn't understand. I was like, here's somebody you wouldn't ever invite in your home. Why would you elect this person as president of the United States?
Well, I think also because he appealed to people's most base wants and wishes, sort of the uglier aspects of their own personalities.
Well, if you're religious, you say, how does Satan tempt you? By offering you material things in exchange for your soul. And it kind of sounds like some of that stuff. People are like, well, I don't like him, but I like his tax policies. I like the financial stuff. And it's like, well, yeah, but how much are you willing to put up with? How much are you willing to, what are you willing to let people do to other people in order to get those things?
You're thinking about it fairly and logically, Ken. There are some people who would say, well, I don't agree with his position on, say, abortion and right to choose, but he's going to make me a lot of money. And
Right.
I can always get my mistress an abortion. I can always get my wife an abortion. My daughter, I can always get her to New York or California. But in the meantime, I'm going to make a lot of money. And
Yeah.
then, but some, I hate the thought. It's inconceivable to me to think that way. To say, well, to take my selfish interests financially and put that above other people's social needs. But there are at least 40% of the country that's doing that.
Yeah, it's
But
that
how
feeling.
does that explain then all of the people who essentially voted against their own economic interests because they really aren't, no, a lot of his base is by no means getting rich from anything.
Well, then there's that's a second part of those voters, because it's not helping them economically, but it's making it worse for people of color. So I think Lyndon Johnson figured that out in the 60s. He said, a white person will help you. You can take money from a white person. I'm not getting the expression wrong, but I'm paraphrasing President Johnson. He'll help you he'll give you his money if you're going to take money away from someone who's black. I don't think he put it exactly like that, but that's what he meant. So that's how those people think that way too.
I think what you're saying is like, if you're where he couldn't increase the lot of life for the white people, at least he can make things worse for the people they're comparing themselves to.
Yeah, he's going to take money away from me, but look at the harm he's doing to those people who are trying to immigrate into the country.
Yeah. And he also appealed to people's worst instincts. I mean, to try and rally people together. I mean, you look at all the racial division that has just grown in this country in the past few years, and it's because he could incite people. He's good at inciting people. He's very good at rallying people. I mean, and there are people who, he promises we're gonna win, we're gonna do best, we're gonna do this, and there are a lot of people who don't look at the facts; they just read the bumper sticker.
Here's the quote, and Tom, you can edit this back in. If you can convince the lowest white man he's better than the best colored man, he won't notice you're picking his pocket. Hell, give him somebody to look down on, and he'll empty his pockets for you.
And a lot of
If you edit that back in, then it just looks like I'm mansplaining to Jeff what he was trying to say.
No, that's okay.
That's ultimately the goal of this podcast, really.
I don't mind, and